Hello and welcome back to Chengi's World. It's Storytime Saturday. For those of you who are new to my channel, I am Chengi and you, my precious one, watching this video are my world. So if you are new to this channel, make sure you subscribe, like, share, comment, join the party and subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you're notified every single time I upload a video like this. So for Storytime Saturday, I've started off with my story just so that everybody can get to know me that bit better. I am still fighting off a bit of a sore throat, but I'm not doing too badly. Today my cup is Her Ladyship. Love it. I got this cup from work actually as a gift. I love cups. I've got a thing about them, and yeah, I quite like this one. It makes me feel like a little queen. Okay, and we're just having lemon and honey. So grab yourself a hot cup of tea or whatever you love to drink in whatever country you're in. Something really cozy. If you're in your pajamas, get yourself some snacks because we're gonna talk about the Chang. Okie dokie. Thank you so much for watching. Okie dokie. So let's get into it. So I believe the last time I spoke to you about my journey, I went to secondary school, and as you know, I mentioned to you that academics was something that weren't easy for me. They were just not. Like I said, I didn't get it, and because I used to sail through with average grades. Throughout the whole of school, and I never studied. I was never that kid that got home and would swat for a test. I would sit in class, get all the information I needed from class, understand enough to pass a test. So I had never, I was sort of smart enough to cruise through school. So when my O-levels came, I was still very much the same. O-levels are probably the GCSE version in England. I don't know what your equivalent is in the country that you were watching. But that was the level before your A-levels, before uni. So really important. And I remember my sister saying to me, Chengi, if you don't study, you're just gonna fail. And I was just thinking, but I've always survived. I've always made the grade without having to work hard. I was never really one of these students that wanted to, I didn't strive for an A. I just wanted to survive school, get out of it and join the real world. So what happened at that time seemed like the worst thing that could have possibly happened to me is I didn't get enough grades. I didn't pass enough subjects in my O-levels in order for me to have to go through my A-levels. But because of the value that I brought to the school, because I was a performer, I was a singer, I was a leader of teams, a house captain, I brought so much value to the school that the school could not imagine not having me for another 2 years. My headmaster could not imagine not having me in the school for another 2 years, because I would have had to leave school and repeat the one subject. And he didn't want that to happen, and he definitely didn't want his number one leader girl, the one that you know he loved completely, to have to repeat, because he knew the embarrassment of it all. So what he did was, and this is where favor comes into play in life, and I thank God that I've always been favored like this. And he said to me, look, you can do your A-levels and repeat one of your subjects so that you can get a grade enough for you to be doing your A-levels. But because I'd already started my A-levels and I was doing 4 A-levels, I had to drop one of my A-levels and then add one GCSE subject, and that had to be maths, because without maths no university was going to accept you. But because O-levels are a higher level than GCSEs, for instance, with the grades I got for O-levels, I didn't have to do A-levels. I literally could go into an American college with the grades I had, because they were the Cambridge, Oxford O-levels, okay, ordinary level. So they were very high standard. So with my mom and with my sisters in the US, and my mom having just returned, it was the natural place to go. So it seemed to be a bit of a waste of time for me to go through my A-levels, another 2 years of A-levels, and then have to fly out to the States with overqualified to get into an American university, American college. So what we began to do was began the process of getting me to go to the US And so that was really the destination. And I've done a video on this and on being an immigrant, but you can go and watch that video, and I'll try and put the link in the description box. But you know, we all think we know where we're supposed to be. I was convinced that I was going to go and live in the USA. I was convinced that American life was mine, and it just didn't happen. I just couldn't get the visas. For some reason, the door was shut over America. So I decided that I would do a 21-day fast with my mom. Well, I didn't kind of decide. My mom sort of suggested it. And I thought, why the hell not? Because I had, at this point, left school. I had left because my dad had given me the option of paying for my A-levels, which would have been the equivalent of a flight to America. So I pay for your A-levels, and you have to stay and go to, you know, do well in them and go to a local university, because I will not pay for your A-levels and pay for you to go overseas. So I had to make a decision, and I decided that there was no way I was going to go or try to attempt any kind of African university. So I decided to leave my A-levels. After, I think, a year and a half of doing my A-levels, I thanked my headmaster very much, and I left and went to college whilst we were trying to apply for my visa. But my visa was taking so long, and every time I sent off paperwork, they would come back with some negative response, and it started to really look impossible. So my mom was like, okay, we need to fast, because you're in a rock and a hard place. You've left your A-levels. You can't go back to doing them. And the only thing that you can do in college now is, you know, secretarial work. You know, so my mom, you know, I registered to do accounting and bookkeeping and typing so that I could possibly be somebody's secretary, worst case scenario, whilst I waited for my papers to come through. So my mom was like, this can't be your destiny. You can't have gone to a private school and had your father, you know, we could have paid all of that money. You know, the school that I went to at the time was probably one of the most expensive private schools in the country. So, you know, to just throw all of that away for you to become a secretary in some office in Zimbabwe was just not my mom's plan. And she just knew that we needed to fast and pray. So yes, we did a 21-day fast. And if you're in Africa, if you're an African Christian, fasting like that is not a big deal. And I literally ate nothing. It was just a liquid diet, so I could drink whatever I wanted, but I couldn't eat anything, and I did not eat anything solid for 21 days. It was rough, but your body gets used to it. So in that time, I met my first ever boyfriend, and his name was Israel. Israel was 25 and I was 18. And he was just adorable. He was a great guy. But again, my sights were so set on going to the US or going to England, going to the US, that I just didn't see anything. And I know that there's some young people in Africa right now possibly watching this video thinking, if only I could get on a plane and go abroad, if only I could go to London or the US, then I would make something of myself. And I just want to really say this to you. It doesn't always work out that way. I sometimes look at my life, not with regret, but in a reflective way, and realize that I was so insistent, so sort of blocked to what else God could be doing in my life. I wanted to come abroad so much that I didn't see the blessings that were before me. I didn't see the beauties that were before me. I didn't appreciate what I had going for me at the time. And, you know, when I look back at my first boyfriend, Israel, I really have not, you know, encountered that kind of devotion and that kind of just complete devotion to me. And I took it for granted because I was gonna go to England and I was gonna meet an English guy, and he was gonna be so much better than these local guys. You know, I don't do local men. And I say that because so many of us are trapped like that. We just have this mindset of the grass is green on the other side. I can do better if I got on a plane and end up with an English guy, an American guy, whatever. And sometimes we have everything we need at our very feet. Israel's family just loved me. He respected my purity. He was a provider. He was a protector. He was so much of what I just took for granted. And I remember sort of looking back and thinking, I just dumped him because I thought I could do better. And, it's something that we need to watch out for, and certain attitudes that we have, because sometimes our blessing comes at the most inconvenient of times. Sometimes God gives us something good to let us know that if we were to stay, and I feel that if I had stayed with Israel and not been so hell-bent on coming to the West, that I possibly would have had the life of my dreams. I know that he would have been a masculine, a good man, that would have been a good husband and a good father. But I took a lot for granted. Of course, I was young, and when you're young, you tend to do that. So these are just some of life's cautionary tales, that sometimes you can be so focused on what else there is on the other side that you're missing the blessing that is just right before you. A bit like the alchemist, right? Who traveled far and wide only to realize that the treasure that he sought was under his feet after all. Okay, but I know that God sees all these things and knows all these things before they happen, and so he allows them to become part of your story for where he is taking you, right? But it's always worth sometimes looking back and thinking, that was a mistake, that perhaps when I am older, when I get to the other side, I can say to some young person, don't take the boyfriend you have in your country, in your city, in your village for granted. So many of us do, because we think if we can do so well here, how much better can we do somewhere else? There's this mindset of upgrading that we despise the small things. We despise the people that genuinely care about us and genuinely love us, because we are focused on a better life somewhere else, because we look down on the people in our lives as though they're not worthy. And it's not a good thing to get older and look back and think, oh, that was a bit of a mistake, because happiness can be found anywhere. You don't have to get on a plane to find happiness. Happiness is an attitude that you can find. And so, yes, in Israel, I found a really great guy. But yes, we moved on. And nearer to the time when it really began to dawn on me, after a few months after my fast, I think it must have been a month or two after my fast, it really dawned on me that American door was not going to open for me. Every door just seemed shut. So I was talking to a cousin of mine who was having the same experience, but for England. No matter what he did to try and get to England, it just was not working. Every door seemed shut, right? So we he literally came to he was sharing with me about his troubles about getting to England, because his mom and his sisters were here, and I was sharing with him about my troubles about going to the US. And somewhere in the middle of the way, and this is something that I really want you guys to know, that God speaks and does things in the most extraordinary, sometimes the most ordinary way. And I thought to myself, why don't I apply to go to the UK? They were giving working visas at the time, 2-year working Commonwealth, 2-year working visas at the time. I was just looking out for my friend there. 2-year working holiday visas, and anyone between the age of 18 and 27 could come to the UK for 2 years, work, travel, do whatever. So it just occurred to me that maybe I should apply to go to the UK. And the next day I went to the embassy, I filled in a form. I filled out the form. I got some money from my dad and went off to the embassy, paid for it, and I left it. 2 days later, I had a call to come for an interview. I went for an interview. They asked me to bring a few documents, and it was really funny because my dad was not resistant about giving me anything. He was just happy to supply, because my dad was really private about his business, about how much he earned, that kind of thing. And before I knew it, I was in the British High Commission. I was being interviewed, and in that moment, normally they let you sort of go away and then they'll contact you after 4 or 5 days. But before I left that interview, literally the man just said, just wait a few minutes. In about half an hour to an hour, my passport was stamped. I went to my dad. I told him I got a visa to go to the US, and I had to the UK. I had my aunt here, and I thought I'll come to the UK, I'll work, earn some money, travel a little bit, and then try to access the US from the UK. It might be easier to do that. So that was really the plan. UK was supposed to be kind of my stopgap. So within that week, I told my dad I've got a visa. He gave me money for my flight. He paid for my flight. He gave me at that time £300, which is a lot of money when you converted it from the Zimbabwean currency to pounds. And I was, and a week later, I was packing my bags and I was on a flight to England. And so I arrived here in the UK, and I was met by my cousin who came to pick me up. And I remember feeling like I had made the biggest mistake of my life. So guys, I don't want this video to get any longer. Just keep tuned on my Storytime Saturday. You know it's coming. So Storytime Saturday is coming soon. So make sure that you keep in touch and keep following me on Storytime Saturday. It's always so good to share my story. If there's anything else that you want to know, I will tell you as the weeks go by. We will talk and take this journey together. More of it, the details and the nuances are in my book that I'm writing at the moment. So I'm trying not to give you everything at once, but definitely you will read some of it in my book when it finally finishes. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of you, and I'll see you in my next video. Love you lots.